Good afternoon, and a warm welcome to NIC's corporate partners and volunteer leaders. Thank you for having joined us. I'm Chuck Harry, NIC's COO, and I'll be facilitating incoming questions for today's webinar. Before we share with you the exciting deliverables that NIC has built for the upcoming fall experience, let's review the webinar's technology logistics. You've joined the webinar using either your computer's speaker system or your telephone based on your audio access during your most recent GoToWebinar session. You can adjust your audio access to today's webinar through either your computer speakers or your telephone using the settings in the audio pane, which is located on the top of the control panel on the right side of your computer screen. We welcome your questions for us during this afternoon's webinar. To submit a question, type your question into the questions panel located within the same control panel on the right side of your computer screen. You may submit questions at any time during the webinar. Now that we've addressed the webinar technology logistics, please welcome my associate and NIC's President and CEO, Brian Jurutka, who will lead today's discussion.
Thank you, Chuck, and thank you everyone and welcome. Thanks for taking time out of your busy virtual schedules to join us as we walk through NIC's Fall Experience, which is really a combination of our 2020 NIC Fall Conference and the new NIC Community Connector. So you're here today because you are among NIC's strongest supporters. Your current and former volunteer leaders, corporate partners, committee members, and future Leader Council members. Now, NIC wouldn't be here without your support. We are, after all, a reflection of the industry and the support we've been fortunate to receive from our volunteer leaders, our corporate partners, our NIC MAP subscribers, and our conference attendees. Now, we recognize, of course, that the Fall Conference and broader NIC is really an expression of the time, energy, and support we've received for the past 29 years from the industry who support NIC's mission. Our signature event, of course, has been the Fall Conference. It's a key piece of NIC delivering on its mission to connect capital seekers and capital providers. Given the pandemic, however, an in-person event isn't possible, and hence the board made the decision to go virtual. Crisis, of course, breeds innovation, and we realize that you can't just take 2.5 days of an in-person event and put it online. It just doesn't work that way. So we deconstructed the event to first see what job it was hired by its attendees to do. Why do people attend NIC's Fall Conference? And based on those discussions, I really found 3 key reasons. Number 1, it's to efficiently maintain or build new relationships. Number 2, it's to get a pulse on where the market is. And number 3, it's the world-class leading education curated by industry leaders who've debated the content necessary for this point in time. We realized that in this time of rapid change, now is more important than ever to connect and understand the implications of the pandemic, figure out where current collaborators are now, and how new potential collaborators might help you adapt and learn about changes in the space. So to help NIC's constituents achieve the same objectives as a traditional in-person conference, we developed the 2020 NIC Fall Experience. So what is the Fall Experience? The Fall Experience isn't just a conglomeration of webinars on steroids. It's a set of activities and tools designed to allow you to accomplish many of the goals attendees seek to accomplish during an in-person event. It's not a lesser version of an in-person event. It's a different way to accomplish many of the similar goals. The key components for the Fall Experience are Education Week, Connections Week, and the NIC Community Connector. So we're going to cover each one of these. Now you'll note in a virtual world, because not everyone is in the same time zone, we need to look at things that work for attendees in California as well as Connecticut. So for the live events, we're going to be looking at time frames across 3 sets of days that generally fall from about 12:30 Eastern to about 5 or 6:30 Eastern. Education Week takes place on our virtual event platform from Tuesday, October 6th through Thursday, October 8th, with Connections Week taking place the following Tuesday through Thursday. Finally, the NIC Community Connector, a new tool we're building to help out NIC constituents connect 24/7, is going to be available starting in mid-September. Now, the first release of NIC Community Connector will grow in both functionality and participation as new registrants join, and as we continue development on the product. But we're going to show you where we are now and where we're going with the tool later in the presentation. That said, think of it as a directory of the active players in the seniors housing and care ecosystem with messaging and bulletin boards built in. Now, there's a lot to do here. I guess the analogy I would use is Netflix, right? You get Netflix because there are certain shows that you want to watch, but you're not going to be able to watch everything. And to some extent, as we take a look at what we've put together for the fall experience, these are all tools that you can leverage to go ahead and achieve some of the same objectives you have coming out of an in-person conference. So what does a virtual event look like? Well, think of it as a digital version in a physical place, with a lobby, auditoriums, and partner meeting rooms. Now, what you see here is an example of a virtual lobby. In the digital world, you can have almost unlimited variations on the theme. We're in the process of building out our lobby with our virtual event partner, Communique, but I wanted to share with you a couple of examples of what a virtual platform is so you can visualize the experience. And so the lobby is really like a home page where you can navigate, easily navigate between the different areas. One of the things you'll note right here, our corporate partners will have branding in the lobby space. There'll be other areas we'll see some of that branding as well. And there's some kind of navigation feature over here that will allow you to get to the partner spotlight zone, to educational sessions and to networking sessions. Let me go ahead and show you kind of a live demo right now. So here's another example of a virtual lobby. And again, we're finalizing the virtual lobby itself. Communique is our partner. 6 Connects is the actual platform that's being used. One thing I will note when you do get to the virtual lobby is you have this thing up here which says here are the people that are now attending. So this is everyone in the virtual space or in the building right now, regardless of what room they're in. And if you want to reach out to someone, you can go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to reach out to this person and message them. And down here, you can see me message this person. If I want to leave this chat, I can do that as well. Within the lobby itself, there are 18 people. And so I could choose to message the people within the lobby itself. Now, let's take a look at what will be the partner spotlight zone and the NIC platform. So here's an example. In this particular space, it's an example of how one partner has chosen to engage the audience, and partners can choose how they're going to do that. They have the ability to customize this platform. There may, for example, be a video upon entry where visitors to a partner's room will be greeted with a video upon entry. There may be the option to set up one-on-one meetings. You have the option, of course, of connecting with the team where you can IM someone directly or you can shoot them an email. You also have the opportunity to look at any videos that were uploaded in addition to additional resources. And a visitor can go ahead and choose to put those resources into their virtual briefcase, which you'll see over here as well. And so this is one of several options that'll be available to partners as they work to finalize their personal space and their brand and representation on this virtual platform. One of the other places, or one of the other things I'd like to show you is just, what does an education session look like? And so here's another example of kind of the key area where you'll launch your various educational sessions. Again, we'll have partner branding in this space here as well. And then you have the opportunity of going into the session itself and launching launching the educational sessions themselves. And so again, wanted to give you some sense as to what a virtual platform looks like, because for many of us, this is only our first or second time interacting in this type of format. And hopefully this gives you some sense as to both the opportunities on how one navigates the platform, what the opportunities are to meet with partners, as well as the opportunities to reach out to others in more of an ad hoc fashion and set up a call for later. You can even reach out to attendees in the educational sessions themselves and say, hey, I see you here attending this particular session. Let's catch up afterwards, see if there's an opportunity for us to discuss. I'm going to go ahead and click back over to our presentation here. So Education Week, again, is going to be from the 6th of October through the 8th of October. And this is the piece that arguably is the easiest to envision transferring from in-person to online, but even transferring this education piece from an in-person to an online or a virtual world dictates that there's some changes that are made. So in an online world, we would typically have about 17 or so sessions. Those sessions would range in length from anywhere from 60 minutes to 75 to maybe even 90 minutes. That's not a best practice in the virtual world. In a virtual world, it's all about shorter sessions, typically in, let's say, the 30 or 45-minute range, maybe in the 60-minute range. So instead of the 17 or so traditional sessions that we would have in person, we're going to have more like 30 sessions in a virtual world. And the reason we're doing that, again, is to allow the opportunity to have shorter, more focused sessions. Those will actually be broken into 3 tracks, one on seniors housing, skilled nursing, and senior care, so a lot more targeted. And they will also be really focused on, one is the managing margins track, as well as a realizing returns track. And again, these are educational sessions put together by our conference program planning committee, which I really would say, these are world-class sessions put together by industry leaders. They've debated the content necessary for this point in time when things are changing so quickly. In addition to the educational sessions themselves, we'll also have daily highlights. We'll have some general sessions. During the educational week, we'll have the NIC Partner Spotlight Zone opened up. NIC Talks will be available. We'll have video happy hours, and then also the operator spotlight interviews, which will be a series of about 4-minute or so vignettes with operators around how they've handled the COVID pandemic. On NIC Talks will be back. The topic this time, or the theme, will be how will COVID-19 impact the future of aging and aging services? And so I think we have some wonderful speakers this year, including Joanne Jenkins, the CEO of AARP. Now, let me move on to Connections Week. And so Connections Week, we're going to have that from the Tuesday, the 13th of October through Thursday, the 15th. Similar in terms of having daily highlights, but really the key ways that allow you to meet new people and learn from others. We have 2 ways that we're really going to look at that. The first is going to be with peer-to-peer connections. And the format for those peer-to-peer learning connections, or the peer-to-peer connections, is going to be using the small group Zoom format. And so imagine the scenario over here where we'll have a topic like, capital expenditure structures in COVID. Have they changed? Or maybe the topic will be, what's the investment case for seniors housing since COVID? And that'll be facilitated by someone like Beth Mace or Bob Kramer, or we'll have another industry leader facilitating that conversation. Everyone will join the conversation with smiles on their faces, just like we have in this Zoom breakout group over here. But we may have anyone from 20 people, 50 people, 100, up to 300 people in this large group. The facilitator will go ahead and provide background on the information for the first 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll provide a prompt to the large group. And that prompt is what smaller groups will use as a kicking off or starting point for further discussions. And so automatically, the large group will be broken into smaller breakout rooms, and that happens without any interaction from the participants themselves. You show up in this new room, and again, you have the prompt. You're asked to introduce yourself, discuss the prompt, and up in the right-hand corner over here, you actually see the amount of time remaining. You'll be given anywhere from 6 to 8 to 10 minutes or so, depending on the number of people in the group. And that's an opportunity to learn from others in the group. The question might be something like, what's the most important piece of data that's necessary to help understand the long-term impact of COVID? And so you'd introduce yourself, answer the question, and then move on to the next person. Now, as that time comes to an end, there'll be another prompt over here. It says, hey, the breakout room is closing in about a minute or so, and you're returned back automatically. And you go back to the main session. The moderator or facilitator will go ahead and call on 1 or 2 groups and ask them what they learned or what they talked about. And then the moderator will speak for another couple of minutes and provide another prompt in the main breakout room. Then everyone will be sent to another breakout room or a smaller group. And that's an opportunity to meet another 5, 6, 7 people. And so now by the end of this, if we do this 2 or 3 times, you have the opportunity to meet a dozen to 20 or so people within the breakout sessions. In addition to meeting those folks, you also have the opportunity of learning from them, which is another important component. And so that's another way of connecting with others in this time. In addition to the peer-to-peer connections piece, we're also bringing back brain dates. And so brain dates will happen during the October 13th to 15th. Think of this really as kind of create your own conversation. It was a popular format at the spring conference. We also hosted these brain dates at the beginning of the pandemic to allow people to share information at a time that's rapidly changing. And we continue to be in this time of rapid change. And the brain date conversations are user generated. And so the way this works is you'll visit the brain date site, fill out your profile very briefly, and you have the opportunity of going to the market over here and seeing which topics have already been posted for discussion. Now, if none of those topics are interested in, or they're already all full, you have the opportunity of setting up your own topic. You can set up a 30-minute one-on-one, or you can set up a group brain date. In this case, host a group of 5 people for a 45-minute discussion. And you have the opportunity of filling in your question over here. What's the 3 most important things that are needed before we open for readmissions? And you can add a little bit about what those key words are on the topic, if it's, for example, IL, AL, or if it's around sources of capital. And then again, that will be posted to the market over here, and that will allow others to go ahead and sign up and join that conversation. We provide the platform that allows sharing this information. We also provide the platform for the video conference to occur. And so that can either be, again, on a one-on-one or in a group conversation. And so one thing we have heard from the series of brain dates we've done previously is many of those who've used brain dates in the past, they've made connections, and that continue to this day, which is, again, one of those important pieces in times that are changing as fast as they are right now. So in addition to brain dates, in addition to the peer-to-peer connections, in addition to being able to reach out to people on the virtual platform itself, on the educational content, one of the other pieces we really saw was that the virtual conference itself, because we are still at home in many instances, or not physically co-located together, sometimes things come up that tend to conflict with the virtual conference. Even more so than if you've spent the time, energy, and effort and made the investment to fly out somewhere to physically be with other people. And so what that means is, there needs to be an opportunity in addition to these scheduled times to connect with others. And that was really the thought process behind the NIC Community Connector. And so the NIC Community Connector is really, it's a new platform created for NIC constituents to allow connections with active investors, operators, and service providers to be fostered on an ongoing basis. Think of it really as kind of LinkedIn for seniors housing. And so registration to the fall conference provides access to the NIC Community Connector through the end of the year, so well beyond the conference, and hence the virtual experience. And I would imagine that the NIC Community Connector, we envision this to be an ongoing directory and networking, or let's say connection platform, where you have the ability of identifying potential collaborators with whom you could work on an ongoing basis. The vision really here is to make the Community Connector, the place to be if you are active in the seniors housing and care space. It's open 24/7, 365. It's a searchable directory and a communications platform. And as registration grows, as we keep this platform open over several different conferences, we hope to gather a larger and larger group of people who are active in the space. If you're not active in the space and not attending the conferences, we'll have you removed from NCC. And so really the thought process over here is, in order to be an NCC, you have to be active in the seniors housing space. And that really means that, as it grows, you get the network effect. And the more people are there, the more that you really have to be there in order to participate. So let me give you an example as to what this would look like. Let me just click over here. And here's an example of the NIC Community Connector. and you'll start off with your profile. And so when you sign up for the Community Connector, you'll actually fill out a profile that you'll be asked a series of questions. This is, of course, let me caveat this and say this is all demo data right now. And so we're still finalizing, putting the finishing touches on the NIC Community Connector itself. And in this case, you can kind of see the organizational name. Now, none of this information is shared with others. What you will see, similar to again, Facebook or LinkedIn, this is a platform to communicate with others without having to share any of your personal information, unless you choose to do so via the email functionality or the chat functionality that exists within the platform. But so as you get down to some of the key pieces over here, here's an example. This demo account is a developer. In this case, they develop seniors apartments, senior service companies, and skilled nursing are the areas where they have capital market responsibility. 10 to 14 properties, not-for-profits, again, a demo account. And here are the services that they are interested in hearing more about. And so the ask over here is, only select those services where you want people to directly message you within NIC Community Connector. One thing we heard loud and clear from our constituents was that, this needs to be a platform where you don't get spammed on a regular basis. Otherwise, it just turns into noise. You want to make sure that this is a platform, when you get a message, it's from someone that you want to hear from. And so when you think of advertising in general, right, or if you think of a message in general, if you're in the market to buy a new car, getting ads on new cars might be helpful. If you're not in the market for a new car, it might not be so helpful. And so I think the analogy over here is, if you're in the market for something, please say, yes, I'm willing to hear more about that, because that's what we're going to be using to drive some of the messaging rules on the back end. Again, here are the areas of interest. And so how does all this manifest itself? Well, it manifests itself in the directory. So the idea behind the directory over here is if I'm interested in looking at seniors housing and care providers, and I'm looking at seniors housing and care providers in the East North Central region, I have the opportunity looking over here. Well, here are providers in the East North Central region. If I want to look for ones that have, let's say I'm looking for smaller operators, anywhere 1 through 25 or so properties. Here's the filtered list of operators in the East North Central region that have 1 to 25 properties. If I'm only looking for those that are for-profits, I can further filter on that. And if only those that have IL, I can further filter on that. So relatively small sample size right now, so I've run out of sample. But I think this kind of makes the point that you have the opportunity of really honing in. And if someone has one of these blue boxes, that means you can message them. And you can reach out to them and type a message and say, I'm interested in having a discussion. And you can send that off. Now, if someone does not meet these filter criteria, or they've chosen in their, they meet these filter criteria, but they've chosen not to be contacted with a particular service, that will actually be a grayed out box. It means that you don't have a service that they're currently interested in hearing from. And that should save time both on those sending emails or messages, as well as those that are receiving those messages. And then, of course, we have an inbox over here where you can see these messages going back and forth. And this will be the opportunity, again, to hear or to receive communications that are particular to those services that you're interested in. The other thing I would point out here as well is the Fall Conference attendee listing will also be housed within NIC Community Connector. And so you can click on this button over here to go ahead and download the NIC Community Connector as well. And so let me go over to the other presentation here. Now, when we first launched this, you've seen some of the functionality in the first release, release 1.1, which we hope to have out here in mid-October. We're going to add badges that will really allow our premier partners, our official partners, and NIC board members to stand out relative to all the potential matches that would come up from some set of filters. In late October, we hope to have a mobile app, and think of this as kind of a dating app. Because ultimately, this is around making connections, and we're going to develop this for iOS only initially, just to speed up development time. But this is the thought process of having everyone in there. You have the opportunity of filtering on whether it's a capital provider or an operator, and looking at a very brief profile, and really it's swiping right or left to say I'm willing to have a conversation or I'm not willing to have a conversation. And this is one way, if both people say, hey, I'm willing to have a conversation, then the second person to say, yes, I'm willing to have a conversation, will have the opportunity to message that person and say, hey, let's have a conversation. And that will actually override some of the filters that are applied earlier. And so even though you might not be interested in having a conversation with someone, but if let's say the CEO of that organization wants to reach out to you, that's an opportunity to go ahead and connect via the mobile app. And so we'll have that coming out in late October. In November sometime, we're hoping to add the additional functionality of a communications and news feed. So think of that again, very similar to a lot of the social media platforms that are out there. We'll also have private groups and public groups. So if you belong to any of these private and public groups, you'll actually see those discussions occurring within your news feed. If you don't belong to those groups, you'll see kind of the more general conversations going on. And then past that, we certainly have other ideas, but we have all those as TBD. And the reason they're TBD is because we need feedback from users that ultimately will say, here's where things are working, but quite frankly, here's where things are not working. And so here's the opportunity to go ahead and improve. And these are the most important things. Now, again, access to the Community Connector over here is only for those that register for the 2020 NIC Fall Conference, and access will be provided here through the end of the year. There is the idea, or there is the thought process though, that NIC Community Connector will continue to exist even after the end of the next year, and we'll look for opportunities to go ahead and figure out the best way to access NIC Community Connector, whether that means signing up for the spring conference, or other ways to ensure that only those folks that are active in the seniors housing space are currently in the NIC Community Connector. Now, with that in mind, I'm sorry. And so there's a couple of additional pieces, but wait, there's more. We are going to have a brief musical performance from a couple of cast members from Hamilton. If you have anyone, like I have a 10-year-old son who absolutely loves Hamilton, can sing a lot of the songs, he was super excited to hear about this. And so this will be something where, we would certainly encourage family to join as well. We'll have LinkedIn Corner, where we'll have consultants that can help folks sharpen their LinkedIn profile. We'll also have a couple sessions on brand, brain, and being. So think of these as wellness sessions. And then we're also going to have a performance by Young at Heart, which is a group of senior citizens that will sing and perform for us, and they have their own album. And so this will be a little bit different. Of course, we also have the video or the virtual happy hours is another way to connect with others as well. With that in mind, that's the overview of the fall virtual experience. Hopefully you have some sense now as you look at this to say, okay, I have a much better understanding of what NIC is proposing for its very first virtual experience. Hopefully what you've also heard was the ability to achieve some of your business objectives in a time of rapid change, the ability to make new connections. I recognize that maintaining a lot of existing connections, you can do that because you have contact information, but you may have the opportunity of running into them here, whether it's in a Zoom breakout session or a peer-to-peer connection, whether you see them on the virtual platform or in a braindate. But those are also all platforms to make new connections. The opportunity to get a pulse on where the industry is. After these couple of weeks of content, you will certainly have a very good sense of some of the big changes and a perspective on a path forward. And then, of course, the educational content, which is world-class, really curated and pulled together by industry leaders, and something that if you can't consume it right then and there, it will be, of course, recorded, and you'll have the opportunity to consume that at a future date as well. With that in mind, I'd really like to open it up to questions. And Chuck, do we have any questions right now from the attendees?
Brian, we do. A couple have asked about receiving copies of this presentation, which we are happy to, we will be providing along with the recording. So you'll get it in its entirety. And another question as to whether the sessions can be downloaded to the attendees' computers so that they can be viewed, saved after the conference as well. Do you want to address that last one while I check the other incoming questions?
Yeah, I wish I could address that last one.
Sorry.
I don't know the answer to that, but we do have some staff that have a separate chat window over here. And so if we see that answer come up in the separate chat window, so the sessions will be recorded. There will be the opportunity to go ahead and view those at a future date. They'll be available for some time period after the conference, whether they can be downloaded from that location. I would imagine the answer is yes, but we will find out the answer to that. And I see some staff furiously typing over here, potentially with a response.
Yes.
As it pertains to this presentation, absolutely we'll make it available. And we will also do a much shorter version, a bit more condensed, probably with some motivational music in the background, quite frankly, but to really spread the word to a broader audience. We've shared this information with you who, I think are closest to NIC. You're our biggest supporters. And we're really, hoping, we want to have you be ambassadors for NIC. As you speak to others, help spread the word as to the understanding, as to the opportunity. We have put this together to help you achieve your objectives by providing you with these tools and activities on the overall experience, but we need your support to be successful. And we want, we'd love to see people in particular registered for the NIC Community Connector so that when it opens in mid-September, it really is the network effect. If you are there, you will draw others. And so I really encourage you to register for the conference. And then, early bird ends the 8th of September, but to register and get into NIC Community Connector so that you can begin reaching out to others. And so we have that critical mass over there.
So Brian, given our audience, one question has come in as to what's envisioned for the video happy hours, which might be a good opportunity to also explain maybe with more detail the peer-to-peer connections opportunity.
Absolutely. And so going back to being able to view the educational content subsequently, so the sessions will be available after conference, but they're not able to be downloaded onto people's computers. And so just wanted to make sure we answered that question. As it pertains to video happy hours, that will also use the similar Zoom breakout room functionality, which is everyone gets together in a big group. And then as we have some introduction of the big group, they're broken into random groups. So you have the opportunity of meeting other folks. And so that's the opportunity where there may be a breakout for, let's say, 10 minutes or 15 minutes with a group of 6 people, the opportunity to introduce yourself, likely to talk about a prompt. During the happy hours, the prompt may be a little bit more lighthearted than the peer-to-peer learning sessions or connections, but it is the opportunity to learn more about your fellow attendees and others in the space and make those connections that are so important in this time when, again, the people, kind of your collaborators may have business plans that are changing and or you're looking for collaborators that have a different skill set in these rapidly changing times.
And with those, Brian, the Zoom rooms that you were speaking of, is that something that NIC is configuring, or will attendees need to set up things at their end?
That's a great question. So NIC will provide the Zoom platform, and we will also provide education as well as a help desk to ensure that from a technological perspective, to the extent where your technology platform is able to access that platform, we can help you ensure that everything's working. And so that will be at the help desk components prior to the conference itself. Will also provide the ability for folks to test out their platforms, because we want to make sure that when you arrive, you're ready to go, hit the ground running, and interact with folks. One of the important things for those Zoom breakout rooms, a lesson learned is really that you have to have your video on because it's very different in a world where it's just audio and you have other people with video. One thing that we've learned even at NIC over the course of the last, gosh, has it been 6 months, 5 months that we've been working virtually is, we're certainly a video first organization, and all of our meetings pretty much are by video, and it really does help. And we've spoken with a couple of other organizations that have done virtual conferences, and they've really stressed the importance of, when you do those Zoom breakouts, that everyone is there in video, because it provides you with a sense of comfort as to who's on the other end of that call. You can see their facial expressions, their body language to some extent. And so it is that, it certainly is a lot more trust that's established rather than just a voice on the other end of the line.
And then, Brian, the aspect that this is virtual, one of our attendees has pointed out that there's opportunity here where travel's not required. It's just much more accessible to potentially more people within your respective organizations.
That's a really good point. It is, I think, an opportunity to partake in or achieve many of the same objectives at a price point that is fundamentally different, not just from a registration standpoint, but from the travel, from the lodging, from meals, everything that goes with attending someplace in person. Now, again, this isn't a replacement for an in-person conference. It's a different way of achieving many of the same objectives. And so it is something we've put together, this set of tools, activities, and functionality to achieve those objectives. And we really hope that, through the combination of Education Week, through the combination of the Connections Week, and then finally through the NIC Community Connector, to which you'll have access through the end of the year, that's the opportunity to go ahead and really to establish, make those connections, to get a pulse on the industry, and of course, and to learn. And so we do hope that folks take advantage of that. We have seen in at least one instance, someone sending 20 people, one of the larger operators sending 20 people to the conference, because they truly see it as an opportunity to expand the number of attendees, and we hope others will take advantage of that as well.
And particularly now, when we're in a period where we are precluded from getting together face to face, that's why we at NIC felt it important to pull together the Community Connector. We're really looking towards you as our corporate partners and our volunteer leadership to make sure that everyone has actually registered for Community Connector. It'll be important that the collective community is representative in there, and not only that you yourselves are registered, but encourage your other contacts to register as well. So we're working diligently to get the word out, but it'll be important that we show solid numbers within the system itself. And just checking what any other questions that have come in here. Okay. I'm not seeing, there is questions, a reminder in terms of the early bird deadline that's quickly approaching shortly after this Labor Day weekend on the 8th of this month. It's already September, guys. And that includes discounts. If you are looking at registering 15 or more from your own company, there are bulk discount codes available. So, any count of 15 or greater, there's additional discounts available for your conference registrations. Incoming question as to, Brian, maybe just repeat how one then gains access to the Community Connector, that it does actually require registration.
Absolutely. So the NIC Community Connector, when one registers for the fall conference via the regular conference registration process, at the end of that process, it actually kicks off an email that will go to the email under which you registered. That will come from NCC support at nic.org. So NIC Community Connector, NCC support at nic.org. And so within that email will be a link that you simply click on, and you can go ahead and register. And so that email will be sent out on the day that you registered for the conference. And so we realize that over time, we will make that process itself a little bit more streamlined. But this is a scenario where you will in fact have kind of two registration processes: one for the conference itself, and the other for the NIC Community Connector. And that again is the you'll see it from ncc.support@nic.org. It'll be sent out on the same day that you registered. And so if you were to just search your emails for that, you can go ahead and register. And it really is, again, the thought process behind that is this ongoing platform for you to look at to see whether or not there's a fit for the services that you provide.
So earlier this afternoon, I was on a call with Mark Parkinson, and he, at some level, was celebrating September 1st. In that if you set the clock as a March 1 start date for the pandemic, we're now 6 months into this. It's hard to believe it's been that long already. But he's anticipating in total it may be a 12-month period. So we're maybe at the halfway mark. But that said, it's been a challenging 6 months for many within our community. A period where expenses have certainly increased, and there are constraints currently on revenue for many operators. So we see this as a potentially critical period for those small and mid-sized operators who are likely to be seeking more capital, knowing that their margins have been challenged during this period. So again, as volunteer leaders, we look forward to you getting the word out there that there's opportunity. We've set up vehicles here through both the conference itself, but in addition, the NIC Community Connector as ways of targeting whether it's capital you're seeking or from the capital side operators that you might be looking towards. So Brian, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add along those lines.
Again, I want to thank everyone for your support. I know that these are certainly uncertain times and not easy times for in many instances. But we appreciate your continued support from a time perspective and particularly from, again, participation in the NIC Community Connector is sincerely appreciated as well. To make sure we have that critical mass, because this really is a scenario where the network effect will be important. We've put together, again, we think a set of tools that will help you achieve your objectives, and appreciate the opportunity over there. So Chuck, I'll turn it over to you to close it out.
Yes, so we much appreciate everyone joining us today. Do stay tuned. We do have an email coming out that summarizes the highlights that we've shared with you during the webinar, and it will include that link to the recording of this presentation that includes not just the visuals, but the audio as well. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're excited about what we've been able to pull together for the upcoming fall season, starting now and through year end, and look forward to seeing you at the upcoming conference and online via the NIC Community Connector. With that, that concludes today's webinar. Thank you for having joined us.